Again, my name is Larry WX4LEC, and I'm
Chappel, is that right? Chappel, I'm sorry, I mispronounced your name.
All right. My wife Chris is WX4PBC. Our daughter Sarah is K4H2Y. What are those things? When you get licensed by the Federal Communications Commission to use public airways, you get assigned a call sign. Just like WSB, TV, CBS, all those are FCC call signs. So, what I have, just a block for you today, are a couple of types of radios. This is not a walkie-talkie. This is what's called a handy-talkie, a handheld transceiver, HT. And with today's technology, I can talk around the world with this device and a couple other little accessories. Right? So that's one thing. This is another radio that is a high frequency radio. We'll talk a little bit about some of those, what that means as we go along. And one thing about all of the ham radio equipment, it all runs off 12 volt DC. So, a battery is in that box there. It's a lithium ion phosphate battery, it's very light. You can operate the equipment. Or any other thing that you need to create 12 volt power. Go them on a bicycle, for instance. And I know I only have a few minutes to cover something that we can spend weeks on. Can some of you see?
You can tilt it more, a little bit more that way, we can still see it.
Good.
Come this way.
Ham radio is not what you may think of in the old movies with your grandfather's radio anymore. It is very much intertwined with current technology. The radio there is called software-defined radio. It is a combination radio computer all connected together to give us a lot of capabilities. So, where is ham radio come into play today? One of the things I was asked about specifically was to talk about emergency services, emergency use of ham radio. So when all else fails, amateur radio still works. But what are you going to do when that radio that you have in your pocket or on the table doesn't work? First off, congratulations, you're a radio operator. You probably didn't realize that that device is a radio. It sends out radio waves to a tower somewhere that receives that signal and then processes it through a lot of infrastructure. What happens when that infrastructure is not there? That device no longer functions. The equipment we have and we use doesn't require that infrastructure. I have in my possession everything I need to talk to somebody else out in the world with ham radio. So, what is ham radio? Officially, it's known as amateur radio. The reason it's called amateur radio is because the government, who gives us a license to use the airwaves, says that we cannot charge people for our services. It's just like amateur sport for Olympics, for instance. Those Olympic athletes are really good athletes, but they're amateur athletes because they're not getting paid for what they do. So we work as a public service. Some people refer to amateur radio as a hobby. Some people refer to it as an obsession, lifestyle. There's one thing, never ask a ham a question if you're in Europe. Because many of us got into this hobby because we like to talk. I'm a retired high school teacher, so when the bell rings, then the class ends. But you can talk locally using our radio. You can talk regionally. You can talk international. You can even talk in space station. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. All right, so we're not amateurs. We're licensed by the Federal Communications Commission. So how do we get that license? So there's three, just like driver's license, there's three different tiers of license. But you have the initial license, it's called technician license. Second level is called general license. And the third level is called amateur extra. And I hold the amateur extra license. To get that license, requires testing. The testing for the technician level license, not too difficult, about 12 hours of study. Most people can pass it. Just something, right here that I know people at 7 years old that pass it. And just with our group in Newnan, our oldest member in our group is 88. Our youngest member is 12. So it is a hobby that spans a lifetime. That's one of the few things that you can get in as a youth and continue to do your entire life. I once talked to a gentleman who was 102 years old in a nursing home in North Carolina. He still had his radio set up with him there in the nursing home. And that's how he kept contact with the world. Initially, we had training, or I had training in emergency communications, and also in what's called an incident command system. Incident command system is the method that all governmental and most of your non-governmental agencies now use to coordinate any response, either emergency or even just a normal positive response. So we are trained in that as well. Famous people have been hams. Some of you may know the name Barry Goldwater. So him. Some of you might know Joe Walsh. Very active him. And Tim Allen. If you listen to him, he is a ham, and you will see on his TV show they featured ham radio frequently in that show, and that station they had on the set there was an actual live amateur radio or ham radio setup. And when they weren't filming, you could go and operate that station. All right, what's our mission? Is to recognize and enhance the value of amateur service to the public. Congress authorized our access to the public airways, primarily as an emergency capability, and back in the beginning, so they could have trained radio operators. Most of the radio operators in World War I were civilian hams before they were drafted. So the country had that pool of radio operators. It's like, how do you talk to somebody that is further away from you than you can yell? How do you communicate with them? Maybe. Okay. What happens? The tornado just went through the tower line. How are you going to communicate with that person? Maybe you're down to smoke signals. Sending a runner is probably the common thing. Here, I'm going to write this message out, give it to him. Right, you run into town there and give the mayor this message. We're here at the church and we're trapped in this building. Hopefully he gets there. And I don't know how good runner you are, it may take you a while. I'll be back sometime next week, maybe. Okay? So, we get to wireless communication. That's what you're selling to people, wireless communication. Radio is wireless communication. It uses electromagnetic waves to transmit a signal over distance to a receiver that then decodes that signal. Your cell phone is the same thing.
The key difference is that ham radio doesn't rely on all those cell towers that get wiped out in every hurricane and tornado that moves through a place.
Most people do not realize how their cell phone works. Anyway, let's just say there's a lot of infrastructure in behind, and it doesn't. If you're going to call me from your phone, the signal doesn't come directly from your phone to my house. It has to go out through a lot of signals to get to me. With radio, I'm calling my radio to your radio. Right? And one thing about radio, you have group chats, right? Radio is one to many. Anybody who's listening on the frequency I'm transmitting on can hear me. All right? So here's the thing, why use amateur radio for emergencies? We have cell phones. There are many places around here that your cell phone doesn't work on a normal day. That cell phone is tower dependent. You have to be within a specific distance to a tower that is listening for your signal. Depends on your carrier, whether that tower may be available or not.
Towers are also directional.
They are. And the
It's
tower,
much better than it used to be.
and the
It's
tower
a very
has,
fragile system.
the tower has a capacity. It can only handle a maximum number of signals simultaneously. You may have even experienced that. I'm sorry, your call can't be completed at this time. Try later. Back in the landline days, I've been around for a little while, so I remember a thing called Snow Jam 82 that shut down the city of Atlanta. I remember, in fact, my phone had a wire on the end of it, and you put on this little thing, of picking up the receiver and hearing the busy signal as I'm bringing it up to my ear. The communications system was shut down. Ham radio still works. For instance, what happens if you go out and it was like that? Right? That's Tuscaloosa, Alabama. A few years ago, I had the opportunity to work the response, tornado response in Griffin. And I know what the Griffin area was like after the tornado. And then we had in Newnan. The tornadoes can completely disrupt our communities, our communications, and so what comes to play then? A lot of people don't realize the agencies that are working behind the scenes to make sure our life can continue. And we'll get to those in just a minute. When the tornado hit Newnan, the 911 center in Coweta County was in the direct path of the tornado. They had to go to ground, and go to bunkers. So the 911 center was offline. The only way they were getting damage reports is from the amateur radio or ham radio network in the county. We're taking in damage reports. Then I was texting them to the emergency manager. So that's the only way that information was getting to them.
Yes, there were a bunch of 70-year-old guys driving around at 1 o'clock in the morning, talking, doing damage reports. I'm like, do they not know these things come in clusters? Doesn't move with them.
That is Puerto Rico and Hurricane Maria. The Red Cross sent a group of 25 hams to Puerto Rico to reestablish communications, because the entire communication network of Puerto Rico was wiped out.
They got hit by 2 hurricanes. Maria was the last one between the 2, and it took down every single cell tower on the island. They had no communications, landline or cell.
And was involved in dealing with getting the equipment from one of the radio manufacturers to the Red Cross, so it could be transmitted down to Puerto Rico, because they were shipping into Atlanta, because Atlanta was a staging point for the response. So one person in our group actually deployed in Puerto Rico and was working on one of the outlying islands, and they had a person who had a leg amputated due to the storm. And with the radio communications he had set up, he was able to get medical response in to get that person to a hospital. And the doctors told him later that had he not been able to do that, that person would have never survived. So amateur radio does help save lives. When events occur, there are a lot of people who are volunteering their time and their equipment to help with this response. That is a scene in the Kiwanis County EOC, or Emergency Operations Center, at Hurricane Irma. All people you see on the back row there are hams. One guy in the blue shirt is communicating with the National Weather Service, getting messages into them. The guy in the white shirt is in connection with GEMA in Atlanta, getting messages back and forth to them.
What's HAM stand for? How did it get the name?
The quick version. Back in the early 1900s, you had telegraphy, right? People used to telegraph, okay? And the way you send Morse code is identifiable. It's called your hand. Okay? So the professional telegraphers refer to the amateur telegraphers as being ham-fisted. So it's a derogatory term to begin with, but over the years we've embraced the term, and that's what most people know of ham radio, because amateur radio really doesn't present it well as to what we actually do. Most of you have heard ham radio. Also, we are officially aligned with FEMA, and, where FEMA recognizes that volunteer amateur radio operators support response and recovery efforts. So we are part of FEMA's communication plan when stuff hits the fan. All right, some of the groups that we work with are ARES, Amateur Radio Emergency Service. It's an organization that's operated by, here's another acronym for you, ARRL. That's the American Radio Relay League. It is the National Association of Amateur Radio Operators. I kind of describe it as the NRA of radio. They work on our behalf with the government, and just kind of a general organization. But they started the areas, and most counties have an areas group that works with the county's emergency management people to help with communications when stuff happens. In Newnan, we work with the Kiwanis Club in Newnan on some of their events, provide communication for them, like they do the fair. We work with provide communications around the fairgrounds. The other is CERT. CERT is Community Emergency Response Teams. It is a FEMA program that trains civilians to be able to care for themselves and their neighbors when an emergency occurs. In Kiwanis County, we also have we call it a strike team, which is a group of people who have gone through basic CERT training, and then with a lot of additional training, and they're a group that is deployable for call out from the county EMA when events occur, both planned and unplanned. I'm sure Pike County probably has a CERT group. each county is different, so how active the group is depends on the county. But it is a FEMA program.
I've been through that training in fall.
Okay.
Long been here.
And I am the program manager of that, of CERT for the County. All right, the other is Skyborn. National Weather Service has a program called Skyborn, where they utilize the amateur radio network to provide information into them. They can see what's happening in the clouds with their radar. They can tell what's happening on the ground. So the entire network of trained sky spotters, or storm spotters as they call them, that provide data into the National Weather Service on what's happening on the ground. We were able to go to the Peachtree City station too long ago and work there, and I had another occasion to work up there in Peachtree City there during Hurricane Michael. So what we're doing with radio is whenever TVs and stuff may not be working, so how to get information out to people. When the Weather Service issues a warning or a briefing, we transmit that out, and then we're also taking damage reports in from around the state. So that's how the Weather Service gets that on the ground. All right. Some of that's about equipment. That's kind of a typical ham we call base station you would have in your house. There's a couple different radios there. You have different radios for different specific tasks. But then you also have field cells, a go box is what it's called, where you have in one box everything that you need. You have radios, batteries, all the piece parts that you need to establish communications. So actually, in just a matter of minutes, we can go to any location and get on the air. One thing we're involved in very heavily is public service events. Like I said, we deal with providing communication for parades, also community events, like Peachtree Road Race. There are hundreds of hands that work behind the scenes for that event to provide command and coordination for all of those runners and all those people that are involved in that event. They deal with bicycle events. I've worked in this area before on bicycle events that have come through here. How do you keep up with 250 people on bicycles scattered over 100 miles?
Sometimes there's no cell phone connectivity.
One of them is MARS. MARS is Military Amateur Radio Service. It's a group of people who are specially trained and have modified radios where they can utilize military frequencies. And the tidbit is every time Air Force One is flying, there's somebody on board of Air Force One that is in contact with these MARS stations. International Space Station. Right now, as we speak, in Gwinnett County, there's a group of elementary school students that are talking via ham radio to the International Space Station. A lot of folks don't even realize that they've got people in space, been there for years.
We just had to hear the announcement on the radio as we were driving down here. We're like, that's cool, that's cool, that's it.
Cool. So, that is a space that does have backup communications. If there are other systems don't work, there are ham radio set up to work. All right. And then, just so ham radio plays a key factor in response and support of public service and emergency response. For additional information on ham radio, feel free to visit arrl.org. Thank you. Questions?
So you're volunteers, so you technically don't get paid to broadcast, but when you go work these events, is it compensated at all?
We somehow get what? The only way you can get paid to do amateur radio is if you're teaching.
Okay.
But other than that, it's all volunteer.
And no reimbursement for equipment or for gas or anything for that, you just.
I think we got less of a grant from Newnan.
The Newnan Kiwanis Club, our club got a grant from them at one point in time.
Yeah, the intention would be, but a lot of it is just individual fundraising from the club itself.
For, regional communications, with like this type of radio, we use what's called repeaters, which are just radios that are on high places that repeat everything that, whatever they hear. We have a repeater at Hannah's Mill, so just down the road from here, that covers this area.
And that really is the majority of the expense, is maintaining those repeaters and getting the antennas and, just cable receivers. To run all the way up top, it gets like climb those towers, is big money.
If you're looking for a career, those big, tall communication towers, they have a big red light on top of them. It has to be changed twice a year. It costs $20,000 to have somebody climb that tower and change that light.
I'm good.
Still not a job for me.